7 decades ago, a boy was born in New York City. His name was Connie, and he would be destined for great things. Connie's father was of noble Georgian heritage, vigorous, practical, and a natural leader of men. His mother, from a distinguished New York family, had strong values that honored public service and the need to conserve nature. Young Connie would grow up to personify his parents' values and would emerge as a man whose career of public service and contribution to conservation stands as a model of what serving your country means. Today, we honor that man, Constantine Sidamon-Eristoff.
I've really never known anyone that had the kind of passion and dedication that he's had to environmental issues and to the causes that are near and dear to his heart. I'm delighted he's being honored because I can think of no one more deserving than Constantine Sidamon-Eristoff.
When you think about Connie Eristoff, you have to go back to the years when he was Highway Commissioner and Regional Transportation Administrator, and you realize how much the public has benefited from the things he's done. Continuing his public service in the private sector is why he's a leader at Audubon.
Connie's family roots in the Hudson Highlands kindled a lifelong love affair with the natural world that defines Connie and his work to this day.
There's something about growing up and living in the Hudson Highlands that kind of leaves an impression upon people.
I would definitely agree with that. I mean, if you come to own the 2 houses that your maternal great-grandparents had, that gives you a real sense of history and a sense of stewardship, don't you? I mean, it kind of feels like what Dad has done, he's done with an eye toward history, because he's wanted to, all this civic involvement has been about him trying to leave a better world for his kids and his grandchildren.
If Connie's environmental ethos was born in the Hudson Highlands, service to his country began in Korea. He was commissioned as a 2nd lieutenant on the front lines of an artillery unit. There, he earned the Bronze Star for meritorious service. Inspired, he then volunteered for more hazardous duties. Returning from war, Connie's emerging interests directed him towards Columbia Law School and also towards his sister's roommate, Anne Phipps. They quickly fell in love and married. For their honeymoon, Anne had been expecting a grand tour of Europe, but was instead treated to a camping trip out west. For their first anniversary, jewelry? No, a pair of galoshes. With the appropriate tone struck, they set out together for a life that would see them contribute so much to the public sphere, and conservation in particular. After several years as a lawyer, Connie found himself drawn to the world of politics and government. Bringing his organizational skills and energy to the fore, Connie helped coordinate Congressman John Lindsay's 3 congressional campaigns. His success there led to his overseeing Lindsay's 1965 mayoral campaign field force. This included 122 storefronts and 10,000 volunteers, all managed the old-fashioned way, without computers.
I know Connie from the early years of Lindsay. In trying to think of anecdotes about Connie, I can't think of anything funny. He's not a funny guy. Let's face it, he's just, he's a guy who's very stiff, actually. But to his credit, that was important, because those of us who were young and heady, and 25, 26 years old, you're at City Hall and you could move the world. Connie Eristoff was, in a lot of ways, the conscience of us. He was the environmental conscience.
Connie served as Mayor Lindsay's Commissioner of Highways, where he worked to improve the maintenance of the city's infrastructure, and enjoyed making surprise midnight visits to road crews. A few years later, he was tapped to lead a new super agency as New York City's Transportation Administrator. Here, he championed smart growth as he brought innovation and efficient planning to the country's largest public transit system, even as it weighed under increasing financial burdens.
He has a great concern and interest in people, and that manifests itself in his interest in their being transported effectively by the MTA, they're being housed effectively, and they're enjoying an environment in a livable city.
While he re-entered private law practice after leaving city government in 1974, Connie's skills and accomplishments led to a string of continuing public commitments. Governors Wilson, Carey, and Cuomo all appointed him to serve as a member of the Metropolitan Transportation Authority. And he was asked to serve on myriad committees and commissions. The breadth of these commitments is staggering. Then, in 1989, Connie was appointed as the Environmental Protection Agency's Region 2 Administrator. At EPA, he worked to control air and water pollution, industrial discharges, and ocean dumping, and administered federal Superfund programs to clean up hazardous sites. He was front and center in New York City's fight to protect its unfiltered water supply, a legacy which today means New York has protected over 30% of its watershed, unprecedented in the country.
Connie understood and made the decision that with the right protections, this watershed could remain in the extraordinarily good condition that he found it in, and that it was in. And he urged very, very strongly with the then administrator, Bill Riley, the administrator of EPA, that this decision to avoid filtration was an appropriate one, notwithstanding the concerns and reservations and skepticism of many of the professionals. Here it is now, 15, 18 years later, and we take this decision for granted. And people are often sing the praises of this watershed protection program that is in place to keep the water so clean. But that program wouldn't be there but for Connie-Eristoff.
Nor was he afraid to do the right thing in cleaning up PCBs in the Hudson River.
Do you remember some highlights from Dad's EPA days?
The decision to reopen the record of decision against GE, to have GE clean up the PCBs that it had deposited in the Hudson River, which was a very, very controversial decision.
As a boss, he was unique in that when I briefed him, and I briefed many administrators in my 23 years at EPA, Connie listened, he understood, and he remembered.
And Connie's the kind of person that looks at the issue, he thinks about who he knows, he thinks about another angle to address the problem, and he opens doors.
Connie has a wonderful way of going around the room and drawing people out and listening to what they have to say, and then if there is an issue that really is worthy of a little more discussion, he's very good at going to the person and sort of bringing them forward a little more. You know, let's delve into this.
And it's this commitment to protecting habitats for the people of New York, as well as its wildlife, that has brought Connie to Audubon. He played a pivotal role in launching National Audubon's first state office in New York. Today, he serves double duty as chairman of the board of Audubon New York, as well as a board member of the National Audubon Society.
What Connie brought to Audubon was not just a knowledge and love for the environment of New York, but much far beyond. He understood the complexities of conservation organizations, the conservation movement, and the government that we have to traverse to make things happen.
One of the things that Connie has always been able to do is integrate his work on a federal level or on a state level with an ecological vision that literally runs right to birds. So transportation does affect the environment, does affect how we see our natural world all around us, and that includes his tireless effort with Audubon.
Throughout, we have seen the same qualities emerge.
What's extraordinary about Connie is that not only does he bring to the table his rich policy experience and his broad vision for a sustainable New York, but he and Anne have been wonderful and consistent supporters for not only the League and the Ed Fund, but for environmental groups across the state.
We don't want Connie to feel that he's now off the hook. And there are many communities that are still relying on Connie and his wisdom. There's the League of Conservation Voters, there's the town of Highland, there are people who are involved with all zoning disputes, is the Audubon Society, there's my own parks. Connie is a landmark, but he is a living landmark, and we want it to continue that way because he is invaluable to all of us.
But not to worry. Connie and Anne have passed these qualities down to their children, Simon, Andrew, and Elizabeth, as well as their 8 grandchildren. Connie has given us a legacy of public citizenship, environmental stewardship, humanitarianism, and civic engagement that is astounding by any measure. We are grateful for his service to city, state, and country, and for that, we profoundly thank him.